Thanks for tuning in to Minds of Tomorrow. I'm your host, Luis Acevedo, and with me today I have Nate, aka Fully Croisened. He is a 3D artist, he's an entrepreneur as well, and a hexagon. That's probably the most important thing in there. So, Nate, thanks
Awesome.
for coming on the show, man. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, this is awesome. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So, the Fully Croisened, just before we got started here, you were saying there's an interesting story behind it. So, how did that become your name attached to your artwork?
So I kind of age myself at this point, but that's just a name I've used ever since online BBS systems with dial-up modems emerged. I'm probably 13 years old, but I was a long part of my life I lived with my grandparents, and so my grandfather, his favorite beer was Old Style, and he'd always, yell at the kids, the grandkids, "Give me a beer." And on the back of this can of beer, it says this beer has been fully croisened. And so if you look it up, it's spelled with a K normally, and it's like German way of fermenting beer, that kind of stuff. But I took that Croisen name with a C, and I've used it for my usernames, for everything. Nobody else uses it, so it's perfect. I can use it for everything, gaming, whatever. And so I've had that forever. It's been my website. It's tattooed on my arm here. See it,
That's awesome.
kinda.
Yeah,
And yeah, so it's just been with me since I've been like 13. So
that's awesome. So, how did it become attached to your artwork exactly? Like, I know you said that it's easy to throw on to whatever else you're doing, but the way I discovered you is, on Twitter, it's Fully Croisened. That's the name that's underlined under your profile picture, and your artwork and I believe the XR stuff that you do, the VR stuff, and the mixed reality stuff you do
mhm.
is, attached to that identity. So, is there a reason why that you've chosen that identity for your
Yeah,
artwork?
yeah, I get a lot of questions on it, and I just like the idea of the words, like what does it mean to be fully croisened, and so for me that's just like, putting something you're proud of together and bundling that up. And so I have an LLC that's named under, so you can go to fullycroisened.com website, and that's where I've done a lot of my freelance work. And it's just lived on and on and on. It's really as simple as that. But
Gotcha.
it's a fun brand known by tens of people. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. So now let's talk a little more about your artwork. So were you one of those people that have always been an artist, like from a young age, and you knew that's what you were going to do, or is this something that you've sort of grown into as you've grown?
yeah, I would say it's as I've grown. I mean, I've always done creative things. I've always, when I grew up, it was a lot of like watercolor paintings and oil painting. My dad does a lot of great paintings on Instagram and stuff like that. But I'm a software engineer. I did a whole career, 25 years of doing C# development, teaching Lua, being an architect and constructing, massive systems for fintech, and even more recently, working in the VR space, doing medical simulations and things of that nature. And so VR finally came along and joined, my two favorite things. And so now I could take my hobby 3D world and actually do coding and development against those for VR space. And so it's like the perfect match of the stuff I'm passionate about. And so you know, I've I've always done it more on the side, but I kind of made a transition in the last couple of years. I wanted to get out of the cubicle. I've had some great success in the form of being able to have some financial, choices about where I spend my time and my work. And I love where I'm working at now. And I also just dive head over heels. And like, if I'm not wildly excited about it, I'm not really going to do it very long. So
Right.
um, that's kind of the driving force. And I decided like 2 years ago it was going to be in VR, metaverse, 3D, this kind of space. And so I'm just going that direction.
Yeah, no, that's a really smart move because anybody who's paying attention to technology right now understands that VR and AR, mixed reality, if you will, is the future. I mean, that's going to be for gaming, for movies, for so many different things. I mean, Pokemon Go. Do you remember Pokemon
Oh
Go?
yeah, oh yes,
Yeah,
oh
I mean that
yes.
was huge. I remember my cousin when
It,
he first got into it. Go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say if only for a weekend, but yeah.
Right. My cousin, he was really into it, like, because we grew up on Pokemon. We were a part of that generation with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And the cards and all the trading stuff. So, just thinking about the younger generations, like Generation A, and I guess I'm Gen Z technically. It's a smart move to do, especially if you want to have, a long-term career. Which leads me to ask, how exactly were you introduced to this whole virtual reality world and getting into 3D art? Because you said that you did some water paintings when you were younger, but the 3D art and virtual reality and augmented reality are totally like, you know,
yeah, I
different
very
than water painting.
yeah, I very quickly got into, digital art, starting early on, making transition to, Photoshop and digital, 2D creations or whatever. But as soon as mobile development came along, you start seeing glimpses of augmented reality, and then the first VR helmets came out. I was getting those. I was in the early SDKs. I was getting my hands on this equipment. Watching, you know, great people online, do tutorials, spending all of my free time in this space doing those exact same things, putting some of my own tutorials out, just participating. And so, really just, I guess that's the transition is like, I've always been in the tech digital side. So I just migrated there.
Right. And so, a question that I love to ask with anybody who's in VR, what was your first experience with VR, and did it click with you right away that this was the future?
Yeah, my first experience with VR would have been with the first Oculus um, developer edition, and it was actually at a gamification conference,
Hmm.
and they had a booth set up, and this is before I even signed up to buy one, like very very early, and I there had a line of people, and you could go in there and put this wacky helmet on your head. It's like what is this thing gonna really do? Like, can it really do that? And instantly in 10 seconds you understand what that immersive environment can do, to emotion, to feeling, spatial. It's really how the human body wants to work anyway. I mean, we live in 3D, we see in 3D. And so to bring that, get off that computer screen and bring immersive environment, like it was an instant click for me. And the experience was actually one of those, of course they wanted the shock and awe element. So it was like standing on a plank, over a giant valley, whatever, and you're kind of like, oh, while everybody outside's kind of giggling. Certain people would have a stronger reaction to that experience than others.
Mhm.
And people were like falling over and having to catch them and that kind of thing. And I'm just standing there like in wonder, going, "This is amazing." But it was just one of those more demonstrative experiences. And so from that, fast forward to, I was doing work here at I'm in Nebraska, by the way. So I worked at UNMC for a while, and I actually did a lot of work for COVID animation. So I probably know a lot more about COVID than any 3D artist should or wants to. But part of do your own research, I had to do a lot of animation about how it attacks cells and whatnot. But I also got to work on medical simulations and witness medical procedures to create those simulations. And so that was a pretty amazing experience that I had working with them for like a little over a year of work that I did with them, and so that was really cool. But take standing on a plank, looking like this is really neato, to actually performing an ortho knee procedure, setting your tibia in
Right.
place. Pretty drastic progression, over 7 years, 6 7 years.
Right. Yeah, but you have a lot of practical knowledge, from what I'm understanding, as to ways VR can be used in the real world, as opposed to, I feel like right now you get a lot of these pie in the sky ideas of what VR can be. But as of right now, there's a lot of practical ways that aren't as romantic and, and
Exactly.
fantastic. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to me, the number one way that I witnessed firsthand was the work I see being done at the IXL team there at UNMC, and that's changing the way some of our, best and brightest people in the medical profession learn. And what I mean by that is, like, let's think of an old scenario. You go to medical school, you get your residency, you maybe get to work on a cadaver or two if you're lucky. So you read it in a textbook, you might get to see a cadaver or two, and then you're expected to do it on a live situation, a procedure with, where the risks are massive.
Right.
And change that and hear firsthand from the students going through the kind of simulations that we're able to provide, and they can iterate and perform this task and be comfortable with it hundreds of times over repetitively in a safe environment where we can arm you with expensive equipment in the highest of risks without giving you expensive equipment and without putting you at any risk, and letting you iterate on that. And so that's like the number one, benefit to me of these immersive VR experiences, is when you get down to educational training, learning, things you need to iterate on. And yeah, it's not a sexy first person shooter game,
Right.
but when you think of how fast you can accelerate the educational elements, and can you trigger these emotions, and there's lots of studies out there now. We've been in this long enough. You can actually see that the retention in your mind level in these immersive learning experiences is like through the roof, compared to like, hey, here's a textbook, go home and read, chapter 7 tonight, and then tomorrow come and perform the procedure on the cadaver. So being able to look at things like, the heart, and like segment it apart, go inside it, come back out, turn it, things like that, it's just massive boost. And it's just going to get better and more commonplace.
Oh, for sure. There's actually a high school here based in, I believe, Florida. It's called American High School, and it's the first international virtual reality high school in the world. It's global, so anybody from around the world with a virtual reality headset can join it and take classes via VR. Which, as you've already stated, I watched a couple TED Talks from the people who designed it, and they were talking about the same studies that you were in regards to increasing people's learning abilities through these immersive experiences. And, like in China, for instance, they're actually using virtual reality simulations in place of your standard driving test or driving school to reduce any kind of accidents and stuff like that. So once you're actually on the road, you will have quote unquote experience. Now, obviously, it's not the same as, in real or in the meat space. There's some people who I've spoken to in virtual reality that will debate that virtual reality is still like this reality. So I'll just, for the sake of argument, call it the meat space. So like there is a different experience here in the meat space and in the virtual reality world that you can live in, but not live in, but experience. But as you're touching on, it'll help reduce a lot of unnecessary mistakes that we can make here that could be fatal. And in fields like medicine, that's so important. And, also with construction too, I'm not sure if you're familiar, maybe you are, with digital twins and BIM and things of that nature.
Exactly.
Yeah, like those things in virtual reality will be huge.
Yeah, any of that, heavy machinery, training, anything to build skills around that stuff. Because like I said, I like to boil it down to like, being able to give you super expensive things in a super, dangerous environment without being either one of those things. I mean, that's the real nuts and bolts of VR, is that I can put you in the most expensive, crane, whatever, where you can play and learn, make mistakes, break things that isn't in the real world, where that, you would have one mistake and the whole operation, the whole company's done for.
Yeah, I went to a trade school out of high school, and I went to get my specialty in diesel technology and apply. So I got diesel technology and a degree in applied science. And when I was taking the electrical class was taught by an automotive instructor, because electrical is pretty much universal across vehicles. as far as understanding the basics. And I'm pretty sure it's universal in all aspects of electrical. But anyway, he was telling us that like BMW, and this was back in 2016, 2015, they have AR goggles or glasses that you will put on, and it'll actually instruct you on what part to move to fix
Hmm.
a certain component. And that to me at the time, I was like, okay, there's a lot of potential in there. But as time has progressed, it's just become very obvious to me there will be new jobs built from these, immersive experiences and new ways to teach preventative maintenance. Like you won't have these costly mistakes. Like I remember when I was a technician, I would, I made one mistake. I made a mistake, I think, one time of forgetting to put oil in a truck before I backed it out. Not a good thing to do. You'll blow up the engine. The engine can't run without oil. A noob mistake, a very noob mistake. And had I been trained in virtual reality or had, some sort of immersive experience, maybe that mistake would have never happened. Maybe I would have made it in the virtual world as opposed to the physical world. And so, yeah, it's incredible the things that it does now and will do in the future.
Yeah, I think for me, as soon as AR gets to the point where we can wear them, like your glasses,
Mhm.
then you're on to something. Like it's pretty gimmicky for me still to like peer through your phone or to use a device to go through to see a thing. It's kind of like eh. But you're seeing some of the VR helmets now that have the pass-through technology to where you're actually combining the real world and what's in VR with AR. So you're getting the XR, you know, term getting out there a lot now. But I think as soon as AR, gets to an actual wearable, it's going to go through the roof because, I mean, to your point, there's lots of examples out there where, on, let's say on Wednesday, the inspector comes through, and is looking at things. He can flag, note, annotate things.
Mhm.
That data is preserved. The maintenance guy comes in the next morning and just works through the checklist essentially, walk up to this box. Oh, there's a note that was left by someone else. I'm supposed to change this fuse, do this thing. Okay, great. I did it. Check. He gets notified. Like all this interoperability and connectedness is just going to be like through the roof. Efficiency gains, job opportunities, upskilling. I'm a big proponent of that. You get a lot of fear of automation and robotics these days, but it's with that's also going to come, this wave of new possibilities for people to, all these things need to be monitored, controlled, looked at. So your job might be different, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, just replaced. And a lot of those, like I'm a huge fan of anyway. Like I don't know, there's certain things that you probably are much more equipped and better as humans to do anyway. It's just because we don't
Exactly.
have an option right now. So
Right. No, you're exactly right. So like I've never been fearful of the whole automation narrative replacing everybody's job, especially when you work like a manual labor job. In Japan, they've tried to replace manual laborers with some robots, and it's not going so well.
right.
They just need more people. So I think the bigger concern will be those who are in more mental jobs where you have to use more of your intellect. I think they're more so at risk of being replaced or having to, adjust as opposed to somebody that's in physical labor. I think that physical labor, it's going to be a long time, if ever, before you can get some silicone-based AI that can replace your job.
Yeah, I agree with that. So it's exciting though, and for those who want opportunity, I think it's there. So
Yeah, for
that's
sure. Now you
that's a
touched
big
on the
thing.
interoperability of these networks. So that for anybody interested in crypto, obviously begs the question: do you think blockchain will play a role in connecting these virtual worlds and this augmented reality and the data at large?
I think it will, but not in the way we think right now, I guess. And what I mean by that is not as a like right now, it's kind of like, the ledger and we're storing these transactions is predominantly what's happening right now. Like Luis just sent me $10. I sent you $10 back. Awesome. That's distributed and no one can say otherwise. We can prove it because it's trustless and it's spread around. That doesn't really work when you're maintaining state for things like, games and stuff as an individual item. And you're seeing a lot of that in the metaverse right now is maybe NFT type model where you're saying, hey, like maybe Nate owns, this sword in this game, and that might be the NFT model. But I think you're going to find creative ways where, I'm waiting for some of these AAAs to harness it in the right way where, maybe at a minimum, you're at least getting to carry items across games. Like maybe if I bought a certain weapon in game A, I can also use that weapon in game B, and they kind of tap into the whole NFT thing to kind of track that, and maybe make it rareable and all that stuff to where I could potentially monetize or sell this awesome weapon that I got. If you think about games like World of Warcraft or stuff with all these legendary, they have all the mechanics of the NFT in it. It's just not out there in real money.
Right.
But
what did you think about
Ubisoft? I think they'll get there. What's
the,
that?
Ubisoft, they're using the Tezo blockchain to start doing in-game NFTs. And at first I was very skeptical of it because it was reminiscent to me, the headline anyway, of the 2017, 2018 boom in crypto where you see, oh, insert your shitcoin here is partnering with this big business here. That's what was reminiscent of me when I saw this headline. But then you look into it and they're actually doing airdrops for free to active players. So do you have any opinions on that?
My only opinion is that I get slightly worried because I also, I have a lot of gaming background. So set blockchain over here and set the virtual gold market over here where you have all these, people, creating virtual, items of the game and selling it sort of on a third-party website or whatever. And so my fear with that is that all this ultimately ends into convenience, and convenience ultimately leads into scam, and ultimately leads into you losing something valuable to you, not just this fun game that you thought was cool. And so my fear is that without a massive amount of education and training to the casual user who's just connecting up their wallet, getting their free drop, getting to play a neat, cool game, that there's nefarious activity going to be associated with that that's ultimately going to get at your, your exchange, your wallet, those kind of things. And so my only opinion of that is that I think the technology is there, but the gap of the casual user to understand what's possible and what's capable with all these conveniences that are just thrown in your face. I mean, you can't go to money websites anymore that aren't just like, hey man, one click away, connect your stuff and it's all good. And we'll give you a free coin to do it. And just give us permission to see, it's right in there with the Facebooks and all those things where everyone's going to ask for, let me see your contacts. Let me have your Twitter account. Oh, by the way, just connect your wallet because it makes it easy. We'll give you the drop. And then you don't know what their security protocols are. And all of this just leads to a really, really rough road for the casual user. And so, my opinion is the technology is amazing and awesome. The gap of people utilizing this stuff with nefarious actors who want to give convenience is like so scary to me that it's painful to watch actually.
Yeah, no, I definitely get where you're coming from completely. And, just for anybody watching, be cautious on where you connect your wallet to, because if you get access to a scam site, your wallet, there's a potential that they can, as you were saying, here's this free token. And then you give them access to your wallet by accepting that free token and they can drain your account. I mean, this has happened a ton of times in crypto. So I definitely get where you're coming from as far as the concern with the average user coming in. Like that totally makes sense to me. I think that right now this is why I struggle, because I'm not like a big government guy, I'm not big state at all, but I do see the utility in regulations, right? But then I also can understand a perspective where you don't need regulations, you just need education. but it's sort of this delicate balancing act when you're
It is.
entering the wild west here of this crypto world, you know?
Yeah, it's careful what you wish for. I mean, yeah, with what is it? Great responsibility comes great power, or vice versa, whichever
Yeah,
way
yeah,
that works. But on the one hand, you want to say, "Hey, I'm in control and I got this," but you really got to be willing to step up to the plate. And I mean, I learned that onboarding people into crypto.
right.
Everybody wants the shortcut. They're all like, "Just can I just give you $100 and set me up?" That's
Right.
by and large, doesn't matter if it's my uncle, my cousin, a friend, whatever. If they haven't spent the time, they don't even want to spend the time. Uh, but then you fast forward 5, 7 years in crypto, I think most people would go, man, I wish I would have bought a Bitcoin. I wish I would have bought an Ethereum. I wish I would have held my Dogecoin. Whatever it might be,
Right.
you can't get the kind of returns that crypto is offering. And now that we've got 12, 15 years under our belt of history, you can't deny that. Like, it's there, but if you don't educate yourself, then you're going to get burned. And I think most people don't want to do that step. So that's what makes it, I don't know how to solve that problem, because I'm with you. It's like, hey, I choose, I want that responsibility. I'll put it on me. I've lost it before. If I lose it
Yep.
again, it's on me. I own it, reap the whirlwind. That's it.
Yep.
But
Yep.
the
Yep.
the 99 percentile, I don't think, is in that spot. They want, what the heck just happened? Who's my customer support? Who do I call? You gonna help me today, Luis? Like, what do I do?
Right. And I think a big thing that deters so many people from crypto. So I've onboarded a few people myself, but the biggest thing that scares people away, and I'm an honest person, so I'll tell people straight up after I tell them, we'll get into Hex in a little bit, but Hex is pretty much the only thing I onboard people onto right now because it's really the only crypto that matters in my opinion at this point. Maybe in the future there'll be something that can pulse chain and things like that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But when I'm telling people about the responsibilities of crypto, I'm like, you have to understand there's nobody you can call. If you make a mistake, know it's you who made the mistake and you're going to have to live with it. I tell
Yep,
them, I've sent $20 worth of Bitcoin and I fat fingered an address, and that $20, it's gone. I'll
it's
never see it
gone.
again. And you know what? But for somebody who's been in crypto as long as you, as long as me, it's sort of like, okay, well, I know not to do that mistake again, and I lost the $20, and you just move on. And the reason it's easy to move on too is because the gains are so insane in pretty much anything when you're in the bull market.
Right.
Um, but the biggest deterrent is like when you tell people you are responsible for your money. Like, understand that you can't call the bank. You can't say, "Hey, Mister MetaMask, where's my money?" You can't do any of that. It's all on you, and that's a huge deterrent I feel for people, which leads me to believe these Coinbases, Krakens, Binances, will of the world will end up being the reason crypto is adopted by and large. Maybe not necessarily these exchanges particularly, but a centralized exchange will be the way cryptocurrencies become mass adopted. I know I'm going to get a lot of slack for this because it's the opposite of what crypto was made for. But
Yep.
as you said, the 90th percentile, they don't want that responsibility. They're not that confident in themselves. And middlemen aren't going anywhere either. I know crypto was made to destroy middlemen, but it's actually just breeding new middlemen. That's all.
It's a tried and true business model, right? If you can offer convenience where there's pain, you're probably going to make money.
Exactly.
I'm pretty
Exactly.
positive you will, in fact. So if there's a pain point and you can offer a smooth, convenient way, you can only hope you at least go far enough to go, well, will this guy support me? What happens if they lose my stuff? And most likely you're just going to get a really nice email. But
Yeah.
um, I agree with you. Like, they're like a necessary evil, because like I personally won't use them.
Right.
I have my own, strategy and my own, take on that, and I've been burned by them in the past. So, uh, I'm like, okay, so I've educated myself to be at a spot where I'm like, okay, if I want to play in this space, here's all the things I need to do for me to be
Right.
comfortable, and I do all that. But most people won't do that. They don't.
They
They want
do.
to open up their phone and hit Robinhood or Coinbase or whatever it is and click a button, and their friend said, you got to buy it right now, get in there. And they're at the game and they're like, I'll do it right now. And it's like, they don't care what the fee they just paid. They don't care about anything. They just want convenience. And
Exactly.
you lose a lot of money and a lot of coins that way.
Exactly. And like that's the other thing too. Like I tell people, I do not keep any of my wallets on my phone. Like don't keep it on the device you have with you all the time. As a matter of fact, don't keep it on any of your devices. Hold a paper wallet and only access it when you need to. Like that's the most secure way. One of them. I mean, you can also link it to a hardware wallet, which I, I'm in debate whether or not you actually need that extra layer if you just have the paper. But I get the reason why you would want a cold wallet as well. I do have a cold wallet. I don't really use it anymore. It just kind of sits around. But that's the other thing I tell people. I'm like, make sure you do not keep your wallet on your phone. Like then you become if somebody steals your phone, what happens then?
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I won't conduct any, transactions. I have stuff I can view and monitor on my phone, but they're not connected in any way. You can't do it. Like I tell people, if you're not comfortable, other than the price of this phone, I could leave it unlocked, sitting on the middle of a bar stool or a bar table, and walk away to the bathroom and come back. And if somebody took it, I'd be like, I don't care. I'm not out. Nothing. That's how I make a plan to use my phone that way. Because I have to replace my phone, but you're not going to get my phone doesn't have access to my normal banking and checking accounts.
Right.
It doesn't have access to my crypto. It doesn't have access to anything. About the most you could do is maybe change something on my Verizon account because that is connected. But other than that, I'm inconvenienced, but I'm not out something worse than wanting all that convenience of having it right there on my phone to do, my crypto and my online banking and all that. I get terrified of some people's stuff that I see on their phone. I'm like, I can't believe you do all that from your phone because
Well,
it's just too
such an
easy.
easy attack vector, and people don't realize it because, as you've already mentioned, people will take conveniency over security any day.
Every time.
And I get it. I really do because there's certain things. I'm not saying that I'm over here with this OPSEC genius. There's probably things that if you were to look at, you'd be like, wow, you're vulnerable here and here and here. But the things that I care most about, it's like I'm trying to make sure I can do everything I can to prevent anything bad from happening. And speaking on this, before we switch gears here, I think it's also imperative to talk about a little bit of NFTs. And I'm bullish on NFTs. I think NFTs are cool, but what most people fail to realize is that a lot of the NFTs out there are not on the blockchain. I don't know of any that are actually fully on the blockchain. A lot of them use what are called, and correct me if I'm mispronouncing it, but I think they're called interplanetary file servers, where they try to make it as decentralized as they can, but essentially it's sort of like this federated system. So it's not really decentralized. And so what happens is you basically get a piece of the data that will link you to the website wherever else the data is stored that you can access it. So in a way, it's creating this digital middleman between you and your NFT that you purchased. And so many people have been burnt by trying to access their NFTs, and then they get, like a 404 error. And nobody talks about that in the NFT space. And I think that's a huge red flag. Like people are just trying, and it makes crypto and NFTs look bad because I think there's a lot of potential for the technologies in the long run. Like NFTs, I'm bullish on, as far as, waiting 5 years until the technology really progresses and you find a way to really store everything on the blockchain. But right now, it's obviously not that efficient to do so. Causes a lot of gas. I don't even know if you can. You probably congest, the network too much. I mean, that's why we're seeing these high gas prices in Ethereum right now, by and large, is because of the NFT transactions. But yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on, the NFTs and, by and large, they're kind of scams. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, this is a great topic because I am researching this as we speak. I currently have not published anything as an NFT. Um, So there's kind of those two different buckets. There's the, now I don't want to take anything away from the artist, but a lot of it's garbage.
Yeah.
And you know, so one strategy is you do these sort of like collections where you'll make you know, a bunch of bodies, a bunch of heads, a bunch of hats, a bunch of hair, and then you let an algorithm kind of assemble them. Like if you think about Photoshop layers, so you would make, you know, the torso, the bottom, but all the same, but then you would start coloring, you know, different patterns, different shirts. So you would essentially make, you know, let's say 10 each working from top down, 10 hairstyles, 10 different heads, 10 different glasses, 10 different shirts, 10 different pants, 10 different shoes. And you would let the algorithm sort of mix match all of these and generate, hey, here's a unique um, you know, combination of all these elements that makes this NFT. And while we do that, we'll add an algorithm that says we're going to decide that this Luis with a hat on and his gray shirt is the legendary rare one, right? Like the algorithm will decide there'll be so many rare, legendary, you know, just like you would see in like World of Warcraft or something, like for items. Common, okay, here's an 8 in a green hex shirt, that's a common, so it's not, we gonna not start it off worth much. So that's one way that they've happened. Then the other way is like I see like, you know, what I would call like more genuine art, where it's maybe a one of one piece that said, hey, I like this artist, look what he came, I mean, this backdrop I have right here, that's a unique, you're not going to find that anywhere in the world, that's a render I made, I modeled that car, generated this picture, I made the mountains, that's a render, it doesn't exist anywhere in the universe. Does that qualify as an NFT? Like, I don't know. I haven't done it. And then it's like you get this like balancing act of like some people, even in the art community and stuff, a lot of the art places I belong to, it's like a sin. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you list that as a digital, you know, art NFT, and they'll like frown upon it. And you're like, well, people paying money for this, you guys aren't. We're all starving artists over here. So if somebody wants to pay money for it, so it's a fascinating topic. I would love to see what your viewers, or if we get some comments flowing in when you know, publish this about, you know, do it, don't it. I've even put a couple of teasers out there on my Twitter, and by and large, I get negative responses back.
Right.
I will say, like, I'll say, hey, this whole NFT game, you know, should I put an NFT out, you know, or not? And people are just like, oh my gosh, sell out, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, well, you know, I really don't know the play there. Because you want to, like, traditionally, I guess traditionally, but I've worked in like, okay, maybe you know, if someone likes something I did, maybe they'd throw me a tip or call me and want something specific, so I'll work a commission and like, hey, could you make this for me in this style and this way, and we'll pay you, you know, some money. And I've done several things like that seem to work real well. Now, could they turn around and list that as an NFT, you know, and maybe make thousands? Sure, it's theirs. I mean, they bought it.
Right.
So it's like, I don't even know yet. I'm still really early in the NFT realm, and that's probably sounds kind of weird in that I make some 3D art. Like, shouldn't you be on top of this? But it's so hard to like approach the subject because certain audiences that I talk to or certain people, it's so polarizing about it's terrible and it's joke and it's garbage, or hey, you made something really unique and you want to put it out there in a digital form, and this is kind of a way to, like, you know, pay some homage to the artist, keep a tribute,
Right.
a chain of it around. Like, that aspect is really cool to me, but I don't know what to do in that space.
Yeah, which, you know, I've talked about this with other people as well, as far as Pulse Chain NFTs and Pulse Chain. I think there might be an opportunity there for people to really break ground on how to, since the Hex community, I think, is probably the most intelligent crypto community I've ever encountered by far. You know, like it's incredible. And so it leads me to believe that the community, some people in the community, will find ways to legitimately put projects on the blockchain, especially on Pulse Chain, with it being, you know, having a higher throughput so you can have more congestion on the site before you have these ridiculous gas fees or any sort of, you know, downtime. So, you know, I think that that's where we'll actually see some actual NFTs being made? Because I don't know that there are like actual NFTs stored on the blockchain right now. I don't know that.
Yeah, I'm with you. To my knowledge, most of them are, even, I've even looked, I've gone far enough to like someplace like OpenSea to go, okay, what's the
Right.
process? If I wanted to put something out, how would I go about doing it? So I've signed up, I've gone all the way through all of that. And, from what I can tell, it's like, mostly they're saying, okay, where's a link to your stuff? And
Right.
that's what's going to get put into the, the chain. And as long as I keep, hosting it, then I guess, either make your own copy today because it might not be there tomorrow, or I drop my server and the image is gone, So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about experimenting. So I'm thinking about putting something out there and just see what do I get shunned off the planet? Does somebody go, hey, that's kind of cool. I think we'll support it. And I think for me, what I'd like to frame it as, like, I'd like to get involved in the space. I'd like to publish a couple of unique one-on-one items that I make. And I'd like to do it in some form where it's like, hey, I only get the royalties because I don't make peanuts on this stuff anyway. But I wouldn't mind if I got like some royalty, same as like a tip or a commission. But if it moved around, I would love for the proceeds to go to like a charity. There's a couple things I'm
Yeah.
involved in. I go to me and my wife go on a trip with a group called Hearts to Honduras. We go at least every year, not the COVID year, but we've gone multiple years, and we support them and we support some kids down there or whatever. And I would love if I could use, some of my art as a means of like, could I, help generate some
Right.
funding towards something like that. So I'd love to do something like that where it's like, hey, if people want to share this around and sell it or trade it back and forth, and every time that happened, like that, I just kicked all that over to something like that. Like I'd be thrilled to pull that off. And so that's what I'm trying to feel out here as we close out
Right.
the year.
Yeah, no, that's very ambitious, and I like that goal. It's it'll help the real world as opposed to just fattening your pockets. And I
I,
think that
yeah, like that's not why I would be doing it. I would just love if
right,
somebody was like, hey, I believe in the cause, and oh, by the way, I kind of like that piece of art you did,
yeah,
because I got a bunch of junk, but every once in a while there's something worthwhile good comes out. So it would
well,
be cool. It would be cool.
well, you've had a lot of interesting art pieces come out, in as far as creating hex influencers into these 3D art pieces, and that's actually how I discovered you, is through your Twitter and seeing some of the posts that you've made of the
Oh,
artwork created from like Hexologist, the Hex Joker, Richard Hart himself. So, how did you go about? What inspired you to create this artwork for the Hex community?
so if you want a funny story, maybe you'll edit this out. Maybe you won't. I don't know. We'll have to see how much we want hexicans raining down on us. But it's a funny thing.
We're leaving it all in there. We're leaving it all in.
So when I first got into hex, I had already done my research. I'd already been watching. I've been lurking YouTube channels, whatever, for a period of time, a good period of time. And I finally decided, okay, I'm going to ape into this. And not only am I going to ape into this, like I want to be part of the community. I want
Right.
to, one of my goals right now is the next time they're on the road trip tour, I will definitely be connecting up with Abit and the mobile people. Like I'd love to go see that dude, take my car down there and hang out with those guys. Like it would just be awesome. So that's going to be a bucket list item to check here in the next year when they get traveling again. But so I'm like, well, what can I do? I'm not a TA guy, and my running joke with all these charts and everything, because that's not why I'm in this anyway. But of course, I like to watch the price, and there's a few people that I actually have come to really value, what Gerardo does, and
Yep.
there's several. I really like Silvertooth. He's just my kind of guy, and there's a handful of others. But anyway, my running joke is that those guys move more lines than I do. They should be the artists, and so I decide, hey, you know what? I'll do while I'm chilling out at night, and I have a Twitch stream that I do. Like I used to just like get on and try to teach people Blender and 3D modeling, and here's how you can do this stuff. doesn't get a lot of followers, but you know, I just commit to it and do it, and I enjoy it. I'm there working anyway. I might as well turn the stream on.
Right.
So anyway, I decided, hey, I'll make a couple of like little meme things, right? So made a couple things, and then like the fun one. So this is the story. This is the one that's going to be funny to tell, because so one of the first things I put out there was a T-share machine. I don't know if you've seen it floating around, but it's a little animated one, and it just kicks out little T-share bills. You've probably seen it somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I published that thing out there to the Hex community of like, hey, I think this is like represents a T-share machine. It looks kind of cool. It got like 9 likes. And then I'm scrolling through, reading the timeline, whatever, and then I come up on, and I'm not going to call out the place because it's just funny, because I actually successfully trolled them, but it's only artist jokes and nobody gets it, Luis, except me, but it's funny. Anyway, they had reposted it, so they didn't like it, they didn't retweet it, they didn't quote it, they didn't even follow me, just nothing, just like copied it, and then they reposted this thing. And it's up to like 300 likes, and people are going nuts, and like, this is the best T-share machine we've ever seen, and like, this perfectly depicts what's happening every night, you know, just all this praise and everything. They still never acknowledge where this thing comes from or whatever. And that's, you know, you talk about this NFT and whatever, and that's like one of the big faux pas, right? Like, as an artist, all you want is somebody to go, hey, that was cool, thanks, man, you know, appreciate it, or look what this person did over here, you're like, something, right? And that never happened. So it's all good. There's no harm, there's no foul. But I'm laughing. So in true artist creative form, I decide, okay, I'm gonna troll these guys with some art. And so I made another piece of art, and oh, this is gonna be bad, but I don't. It's okay, because it's all fun. There's nothing but love. It's all fun. So I actually did another piece of art. I'm not gonna say what it was if somebody wants to dig that deep and figure it out. But I basically said, hey, you know, tune in here for the greatest reposts, and that's like the word you don't want to hear yourself being used, but nobody even got it, right? So I'm like, tune in here for the reposts, and I actually made a piece of art of them posting my T-share machine. And they're like liking it, loving it, telling me how awesome the art is, whatever. And I was just like, all I did was troll you. I'm sorry, but that's the only way I know how to deal with that stuff.
Right.
So,
well, hey, we'll set the record straight, and we'll title this "Creator of T-share Meme," and then have your name there, Fully Croisened.
but back to the original question, that's sort of how the Funko Pops all started, because what happened is eventually somebody, and actually, you know, to his credit, actually, it was the first person that ever like directly contacted me in the Hex community was Johnny Chaos.
Oh, okay.
And because he actually had saw that, and at some point it had finally come up where I was like, yeah, because I was kind of pissed one day, and I was like, yeah, I'm glad I made it, you know, after it's having literally hundreds of likes and everything like that. And back on my page, the original post has like 7. And I was like, what the hell, man? So eventually I think I was kind of like, hey, I'm glad I made this, whatever. And then Johnny was like, oh shit, you did that, you know? And I was like, yeah. And he was just like really cool. And it was awesome for him to like kind of go the next step and figure out like, where did this neat thing that I like come from, instead of just writing it off, which is, I mean, you just take it. That's how it is. It's all fine. Like I said, there's no ill wills or anything around any of that. I just have fun with it. But I just thought it was kind of funny, and it's like my own inside joke that won't be once you publish this.
Right.
But that's okay. That's what it's all about, right? So I just thought it was funny that I was like, hey, all right, I'm going to try and troll this back. And I was actually successful in my own sense, in that they're like, this is amazing, thank you. And I'm like, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So it didn't even work. So I couldn't even troll good, Luis. I tried it, and it just didn't even work out for me, because no context is like, whew.
Well, much like, you know, so the world, in my opinion, is its own truth engine. You know, like we say that Hex has its truth engine. I think the world has a truth engine built in it as well. And so when this is put, everybody's going to know in the Hex community, hopefully, that you were the creator. That, you know, so and rightfully so, you know, and I'm actually surprised. Like, I had no clue when I invited you to come on the show that you were the person who created that, but I've been seeing that a lot. And, you know,
Yeah, it
honestly,
gets used all over the place. And I
yeah,
would say almost, I don't think one time short of Johnny, anybody going, hey, I'm glad where this came from or nothing. And it gets used a lot. Like I bump into it all over the
me too,
place.
on
I'll
Twitter.
just be randomly scrolling, like, there it is. And I think it's cool. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
And now it's so spread out, like no one would even know the wiser or whatever. And yeah, use it up. Like that's why I put it out there. It's fun. It would just be, if the original time, if it would, at a minimum, you could have just liked it, right? Not just take it and
Exactly.
repost it. Just like it, quote it, retweet it, a little something, you know.
Right.
But
A retweet would
it's
have
all
been like, yeah, that would have been
totally sufficient. Like go nuts, use it. That's why I put it out there. I want people to use it,
exactly.
enjoy it, you know. But
Yeah. But, you know, and for
it's
those
all
who
good.
are, you know, I don't talk about Hex all the time on the channel here, but that's pretty much the only crypto that I'll talk about on here because I do believe it is the future of crypto. It's going to pave the way for mass adoption because it's a savings account, it's a CD, it decentralizes the Federal Reserve, making you the Fed, which is where I'm tying your meme into. The T shares, essentially, for those who are unaware, when you stake your hex, now it's getting a little pricey, but regardless, you get a level of shares, whether it be a million shares, a billion shares, or a T share. And so the amount of shares you receive will then determine the amount of hex you are generating every night. And so your T
Every night.
shares, yep, and your T shares are your B shares or M shares, whatever level share you have, are analogous to a miner for Bitcoin or Ethereum, minus the need to use so much freaking energy to do the work, and you don't need to dump your coins in order to pay your bills. So it does everything right as far. And I may get slack from this from the whole crypto community at large because as I've become more of a proponent of Hex publicly, I've been actually receiving DMs privately from other people who've been on the show or other people who know me that are like, I don't know that you should be promoting Hex. Like, don't you know it's a scam? And, you know, in the back, and I'm like, you guys don't even know what you're talking about, but that's okay. But it's doing what Bitcoin tried to do, quite honestly. Anybody who's took time to study what Bitcoin is and what it tried to be, Hex is doing that. Like
It's
it is true crypto.
2 years is like almost 10 in crypto.
Exactly.
The
I
rug would
told
have
you
the rug would have already happened. I mean, there's so many opportunities of the scam to have kicked in. Like all I believe in this product, I share your thoughts on that. This is my only crypto I have. I don't have one penny of anything else other than the Ethereum needs to
right.
swap and move like that. I do have some Ethereum, but I don't have one other cryptocurrency of any kind. It's all 100% hex. It's 100% staked. I believe in the product. I actually believe in Richard Hart, even if he rubs some people, you know, crazy. But when you have a lot of money that you don't have to worry about being politically correct or saying the right things, imagine what every one of us could do if you were completely free of those ties, right?
Yeah.
We're not all in that space. We have, you know, day jobs. We have to be considerate. We have responsibilities. We have all these things and these pressures coming on us that he does not have. So once you kind of open yourself up to that, going, wow, what could a life be like in his world? And that's actually attainable for all of us, you know, common folks to get to because of this amazing product. Like that's just how I feel, and I'm the same way. And it's like, you know, why would he go through the trouble and do all this work and put himself out there and be accessible? And you know, he literally watches out for people. He genuinely cares about his community. I mean, I literally seen him reaching out to, I think it was Hex Joker, you know, put a pretty sentimental post out back around Thanksgiving, and Richard Hart himself responded to that. I thought that was like incredible. Like, where are you going to see, you know, that kind of if he was just waiting for the data to pull out the OA wallet and rug everybody, he's not going to send a tweet saying, "Hey, hang in there, man. It's going to be okay." Like
And
to
we don't
one
even know who
person.
owns. We don't even know who owns the OA.
Yeah,
He's
it's
not
all
gonna say.
speculative, right?
Exactly. So even for like we can speculate and say that
I'm,
he'll steal all the money, but we have no proof that he even has access to the OA. I mean,
I'm
we can assume he can, but we don't know.
I mean, he just pulled off the highest and best sacrifice phase ever. How come
Yep.
he's not gone already? Like, wouldn't you do it right then? If you and me said, "Hey, everybody, don't you love Nate and Luis? Send us all your money to the sacrifice wallet. We promise we're coming out with something cool, and we wanted to leave next week." Isn't that the time you
Right.
do it?
And not only that, but how do you have an entire community? So I sacrificed for Paul's Chain on the first day. I had my bags ready to
Ooh,
go. I was waiting for it first day. And so when the news broke, I went, didn't even pace myself, aped into that project, just like I did Hex.
nice.
When I found out about Hex and it clicked for me, it took me about a week. And there's still things I'm learning from Hex. But to get the fundamentals of Hex, it took me about a week to like really understand this is where we're going. It just makes the most sense because around that time, on a quick aside, I was looking for places to park my money to earn yield because I've never been a trader. Never. It never interests me. I always thought it was stupid
Call
because
call your local credit union.
right.
You could be getting 0.1 to 0.25% on that money over 10 years.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, and it's not, and then you get 6.2% inflation in October, right? Which is probably much higher than that. And so, I was looking at like these centralized places like Amber Finance and
Oh,
Celsius,
sure.
which Celsius just got hacked. I know this is going to come out a little later, but recently, as of the date of this recording, hacks for millions of dollars. And they're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's not, don't worry about it. It's okay. And like, so, but I was at that time, I was starting to learn more about DeFi because, I know DeFi came out a couple summers ago, but I'm one of those people, like, I'm very open minded. I like to, learn about new things and new technologies, but I'm also very, very, I do my research before I go all into anything. And so all this DeFi stuff, it just felt very scammy to me at the beginning. And
Oh,
so I
yeah.
just stayed long away from it. And I was like, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ethereum. That's all I'm putting my money into. And I'll just hold. Like, I'm a holder. Like, that's what I do. I understood, like, when I got into crypto, I was like, the best thing you can do is hold. Like, I didn't need anybody to tell me that. It just made sense. It's like, look at how Bitcoin performed over the long term. And if it has room to grow, you're going to catch most of that momentum by holding it. And so just through the ups and downs, hold it,
Just
forget
wait.
about it, and let it go. And I was like, I want to start. I want to make my money work for me, and I don't really want to get into debt, so I don't want to get into real estate. So it's like, what do I do? Well, there's a lot of options in crypto, so I started browsing through these centralized exchanges. I parked my money in Amber Finance for a little bit, earning like, you know, what was it, like 2% every week or something. I was like, oh, so if I can just keep doing this, I can get compounding, like I can start making a lot of money over the long term. But and, and then I come across Richard Hart, right? I come across Richard Hart's YouTube channel. And mind you, I had been seeing it in my recommended feed for probably a month or two before I ever clicked on a video because
Mm,
I just saw this dude who looked very flashy. I'm not a materialistic guy whatsoever. And
right.
so that kind of stuff doesn't really appeal to me. And I was like, it seems a little weird. And he's doing 5-hour streams. I'm not going to sit here and watch a 5-hour stream. And then one day I was like, all right, I need to switch up what I'm watching a little bit. So let me try out this guy who keeps coming up on my, recommended feeds. And I listened to him and I'm like, why does nobody else teach this about crypto? Like instantly I was like, this dude is a genius. Like it didn't take me watching one or two streams. It was like, this dude's an expert in what he talks
Hmm.
about. He's a genius and he has a cryptocurrency. I need to learn more about this. And so that's how I was introduced into Hex. I think I had another point I was trying to make there, but to go off of this, how were you introduced to Hex?
Um, man, like I said, I was actually pretty jaded with the whole crypto environment after my mining days, and getting burned for a lot of coins. early on, 2014, and weren't worth nothing then, but holding for 7 years, all of a sudden, this was a pile of cash we're talking about. And luckily, I had more to use, but I got introduced to Hex from, basically my best friend. He's kind of stayed in it and been looking at it, and he came to me and said, "Hey, I did this pulse chain sacrifice, something I've been watching and following. I know, Richard Hart, whatever." So he just got me into it. So I'm a latecomer. I started watching videos, whatever, and then yeah, immediately. I've been paying attention to some of the DeFi projects. I don't know how I didn't catch Hex sooner, but until he prodded me, I didn't, take that next step. But I had a lot of jadedness to overcome to get me back in. Let's call it that, because I kind of went the other way to you. Like I'm getting up to an age now where I'm thinking about, okay, I want to have these multiple, revenue streams, and how do I want to position myself for a retirement and all these different things. So it's like, okay, I've got a 401k, I have some savings, looking into some property real estate. These are all tried and true good things to be having in play, keep working, all this stuff. And then looking at these kind of, gains and savings you can get for doing nothing more than what I just did, which was hold, is the perfect fit for me, the perfect home for me. So, and then watching the videos, and yeah, it's like a lot of people will get turned off by that. But if you go a step further or give it a chance, do your own research and see that a lot of that is just, it's fluff he's doing to get the Instagram posts up. It's stuff he's doing to draw in attention. Nobody wants to see, I guess not having money and all this amazing product and whatever. So there's an element of marketing to it. I'm sure it's not all bad having that stuff, but I'm with you. I don't really go for that part of it, but I kind of went right past it, honestly. Like, I think Richard Hart's amazing, phenomenal, whatever, but I also don't put anybody on such a high pedestal that I
Same.
give much of 2 cents. I kind of, hey, that's really cool, but then I went over here like, let's look at your product, and I analyze the snot out of
Yep.
Hex, the product, and that's why I'm there, and that's why I'm here. It could be Richard Hart, it could be you, it could be somebody else. To be honest, like, I think he's a genius too, all that stuff, but to be fair, like, it's just not. I don't put anybody up on that kind of a
Yeah.
thing where I'm like, oh, the product won me over, not him,
Mhm.
and that's the honest truth about it. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, hey, you can make gains for holding, and I can get this return, and the code's immutable. It's done. The product's complete. They're not updating it next January to mess everything up.
Right.
It's good. Hey, you checked all my boxes, and I don't really care who made it at that point. It's a perfect product, and all thanks and appreciation to Richard Hart, but the product is what won me over, to be 100% honest.
Right. And that's the same with me. Like, I appreciate the genius of Richard Hart, but I don't idolize any man. Like,
Exactly.
I have no issue being like, well, that was really stupid, but you made a good product. So I'm not saying I do the same. I'm not saying I do that with Richard because I've never seen him do anything really stupid. But yeah, I think you get what I mean with anybody. Like, as long as you have a
Exactly.
good product, I'm not going to worship you for making that product because you're a human. So you can make mistakes. You're at fault in some occasions, but your product can be very, very good. And
Yeah.
that's what won me over with Hex. Really, like, I was able to get past all the artificial stuff because I'm a salesman myself, and so I understand marketing and sales, and I've been doing the social media thing for a while, so I get why he would do the flashiness as far as all the Rolexes on one side, talking about the money he has. I'm like, this is a tried and true marketing plan right here, and the man is also a marketing genius. So
Yep.
why not just let him do his thing? I mean, he had his own company for doing SEOs, so it's like he knows what he's doing. And if you just listen to the content, it's actually like some of the most educational things you will hear in crypto by and large, and it's all free. And yeah, but on a different note here, talking about the product of Hex, you know, when I feel the hardest people to onboard into Hex are people who are in crypto already because they too are aware of all the scams and the Ponzi and pyramids, but they have this cognitive, at least a lot of them from what I've experienced from my friends that are in crypto, have this cognitive dissonance that they can't see that the projects they're in are those promise coins that they're, criticize, that they'll apply that to Hex, but they won't apply that to their own. And so I remember when I tried to onboard one of my friends who was really into crypto, like probably in it longer than me. Actually, for a fact, he was. I think he was like in Bitcoin in like 2013 or 14 when we were in high school. And anyway, I explained Hex to him, and he was like, "That sounds like a Ponzi, man." And I'm like, "Do you even know what a Ponzi is?" And so he started explaining it to me, and I was like, "Well, by your logic, wouldn't Cardano, which was one of the projects he was in, ADA, I was like, wouldn't that be a Ponzi? Wouldn't Bitcoin be a Ponzi? Wouldn't Ethereum be a Ponzi?" And, he was like, "Well, yeah, but there's differences here and there." And I'm like, "But the biggest thing here that really got me with X, it's a finished product.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
as you
done.
said, it's done. Like, there's no need to do anything more. Just let it be. Just let it
Leave it
exist."
alone. Let it run.
Exactly. So, um, yeah, man, we touched on a lot of stuff here. One of my questions I was going to ask you if you plan on doing NFTs on the Pulse chain, or what are your thoughts on Pulse chain? But you're kind of hesitant with that, and
I've,
I respect it.
yeah, it's like treading lightly. Like I just don't know what to do with it. And like I said, I think I might dabble in it, and I think my first one might be, I'll try to experiment. Does this thing go over good? Is it a big joke?
Right.
I think that's the best way to learn, like firsthand, like put it out there, and I'll take what comes with it. But I think if I, wrap it up and put some good naturedness around it, and hopefully it could, I don't care if it makes $50. If I could donate that and it goes out in NFT space, and next year somebody hands it to someone else for $50 again, just because they believe in the cause, like that would be amazing. So
Mhm.
that's where I could see getting the most use out of NFT. Like for me, I don't think I'm going to make some amazing Snoop Dogg mashup pixelation that gets me $250,000 on an NFT sale. But I do think you could have some attributed digital art going around that
Yeah.
could do some good, at a smaller level. So,
So before we go here, I want to ask you a little bit about the Hex Museum that you
mm,
uh, created. I think that's really cool. I've toured it a couple times in my Telegram. I've sent every time I have a guest coming on the show, I send it out to the Telegram, asking if they have any questions for the guest. And a lot of people on the Telegram checked out the museum themselves, and they
oh,
like,
really? Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome. I didn't know you did that. That's awesome.
yeah, man. So how did that come about? Like, did you actually create the building yourself, or is there like in VR chat room how you have like these predestinations where you can then do your own thing, or like how did that come about?
Yeah, so that's a relatively new site, and it's still free right now. So I'm not sure how long I'll be able to keep it up. Um, I don't know how much I'll have to start paying at some point. Um,
Okay.
it'd be cool if I could get my Twitch stream going enough to maybe, get some community to throw in a couple bucks here and there to keep the museum alive would be pretty sweet. But right now it's free, so I don't need to do that. And it's a place called Art Steps, and they have some of these like they're kind of new. I think they'll get to a point where they have enough features they could start charging for, but right now it's sort of a beta mode, if you will, and so it's all free, and but you have kind of limited options. So there's about 4 or 5 building styles you can pick from. You can't make your full own building, or I would do that. I have to choose one of their presets, but it's the easiest way to just conveniently, I can just put all my renders up and stick them on the wall, and they have some nice tools to give them frames. And I just thought it was a cool way to be able to share like sort of one at a time, Twitter post out like as I'm doing these to be able to like keep the whole collection, going and be able to pop in there and just look around. And it kind of tells a story if you look around and pay attention to some of the stuff in some of the pieces. I mean, I've got pictures, I've got renders in there as kind of a tribute to, Hex 19, the gentleman that got hacked really badly here a few weeks back. There's that in there. There's the birthday cake for the 731 celebration. There's, little Funko Richard with his legs all spread over that chair, like from the documentary that's filming. But you can almost tell by some of the pictures a little bit of the timeline going on, you know, even with
Mhm.
with Johnny and Jess and Joker even. I mean, if you look into what's going on in a lot of those renders, it's if you're also active in the community, you could probably find a timeline a little bit of like, oh, that's what everyone was raging about on Twitter that week or whatever. And you know, I try to catch a little bit of what's going on out there combined with a little personalization, and then easy enough that it's something I can throw together in, you know, a couple hours or so. So it's just fun.
Yeah, no, I think the work you do is awesome, man. That's why I wanted to talk to you, and I think that over time it'll be more appreciated, especially as Hex grows. I think a lot of your artwork will grow with it. Not that it's dependent on it, but being that there is a portion of your portfolio that is wrapped up in Hex influences,
Right.
creative effects. I think that over time it'll prove to be a really good decision. Even though I'm sure, as you were just saying, this is something that you did just because you felt inspired to, and it wasn't out of this grand scheme of anything. But I think over history, I think will look upon your work very well, especially as Hex
That'd be fun.
grows. So.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones is actually DJ Cryptomatic.
Oh, yeah.
That guy's awesome, man. I love watching his Twitch streams, catching his music. A lot of times he's over in, you know, Germany or somewhere over there, and so a lot of times the timing is that he's on streaming like my afternoon of work,
Right.
so I can like have his mix going, and it's just like awesome, gets me right in the zone. But if you look at his picture and you've ever tuned into his stream when he does like the roller skating stuff, you can see I put him in roller skates, and I gave him the gold fanny pack off one of the girls that's in the video that, you know, the chat's always like laughing and cracking up about of her outfit. And so that's why he's wearing that gold fanny pack, is because if you've ever seen that video on his streams, there's a certain girl rocking that thing that I just thought we should put him in it. So
Yeah, and for anybody who's curious, the 731 event was the second anniversary celebration of Hacks in London. It took place last week, I believe, and actually, he was the DJ for it.
yeah, he went there to Fabric, and yeah, it was cool. I even got hit up by like the Hex Toys guys, and I made the
Okay.
Fabric. You know, they did the after party show. There was like a graphic, you know, promoting that, so I put that together. So that's all out in the museum now too. So, and if you, I don't know if you saw the birthday cake, but that has like
Yep.
all the characters to date are all in that shot. So it's like that's a crazy scene to put all them into one place.
Before I got back here to set up for the interview, my wife and I went out to eat, and I was showing her some of your work. And that birthday cake was actually, I think, like the second piece I showed her. I was like, oh, and then here's from the second. He did this artwork. Is a I'm, for whatever reason the word's fleeing me right now, but dedication to the 731 event that took place, and she really liked it. And yeah, man, I think the work you do is really cool. So I really appreciate you for coming on the show and taking some
Yeah,
time to talk with me. So where can the people find you, man? Like if they want to stay up to date with your work.
easiest is just at Fully Croisened on Twitter. That'll get you all the right places. I do have a Twitch channel, Twitch TV/Croisened. From there you can find other stuff, but I do have a Facebook page. I have an art station. I have a sketch fab. There's a lot of those different things out there. So if you go to Twitter and you want to go farther, eventually hit me on Twitch or something, you'll find all that other stuff. But yeah.
Awesome.
So I appreciate you having me on. It's an awesome conversation, Luis. Maybe we can do it again sometime in the future. So
Yeah,
I'd love to check back with you and help try and promote your channel as well. Because yeah, I think you have a good segment going on, and I think you have a really good style and knack for this. So I hope you keep pushing on, and I want to see more come out. So it'd be cool, man.
Well, thank you, man. I really do
Oh,
appreciate that.
we'll
Oh, there we go.
leave you with that.